Welcome to No More. Today we have two special guests, our grandchildren, Miss Alea and Miss Nyasia. Say hello to everyone. Tell everybody hi. You're not gonna speak? No. Well, today, like I always do, I'm gonna start off with a little poem, and it's called Falsely Imprisoned. Imprisoned in jail for a crime I did not commit, proclaiming my innocence that took a long 35 years to acquit. Accused of raping a 9-year-old boy when he was just 19. That young's life would be stolen from him was devastatingly unforeseen. All because I fit in the description, a case of mistaken identity. Now facing years of hardship, gone the days of relaxed serenity. The mental anguish he must have endured, one cannot conceive. Yet, he's not angry or bitter against most of us could not perceive. Four motions were denied for DNA testings on his case. The fifth proved his innocence and became his saving grace. Released when he was 54, with a smile that does not leave his face, he says, it's because I got God, his devout faith he does embrace. Now positive and happy, he is an inspiration to all mankind, to fight and not to give up hope with dealt cards justly unkind. Now today's topic is falsely accused, falsely imprisonment. We all know that a lot of that goes on around in the city, around each state nowadays. One of recent stories which hit everybody was back in June 2015. This one was a young man by the name of Khalif Browder. He was jailed for years without trial, and then he actually killed himself, committed suicide. I'm going to talk a little bit about the story if you have not already heard about it. Khalif Browder was a young man. He was 16 years old. He was in New York jail prison, all because of a backpack, allegedly accused of stealing a backpack. Because his family was unable to obtain $10,000 to get bail, he had to suffer and stay inside prison for 3 years awaiting trial. The teen endured beatings from officers and other inmates. He tried to commit suicide and spent more than 400 days in solitary confinement. Eventually, in 2013, his case was actually dismissed. The public surrounding his case led to a plan to try to curb the violence at Rikers. But since he went home, he was at home and he was going through a lot of anguish, a lot of pain, which a lot of people don't understand. You know, you say, oh, they're going to get a lot of money because you were falsely accused. You was in prison for 5, 10 years or 35 years, and then you actually are released. But no one actually understands the anguish or the torment that these people actually endure. In his case, he suffered beatings from officers, from inmates. He was actually in a hole, what was it, for 20 days? You know, and it's sad that people have to actually go through this just because we don't have enough money to get a public defender, or a real attorney. Do we have to actually, suffer because we don't have the money? I actually took 2 inmates to court one day, and we was downtown, and both were in prison for the same crime. One came from a background where he didn't have money. The other one came from a wealthy family that actually has businesses around here in Las Vegas. But because the young man who didn't have the money to get an attorney, he actually had to do 4 years in prison, versus the young man that had money. He only had to do 1 year for the same crime, and they both offended it 3 times. So my partner here is going to go ahead and go into a little bit about the stats of how many innocent people that are actually sent to prison.
How many innocent people have been sent to prison? A new database called Wikipedia of Innocence for an unprecedented look at wrongful convictions. The Bureau of Justice Stats doesn't track exoneration. So for years, the task has fallen on lawyers, academics, and activists, relying on news reports and legal findings. While the Innocent Project, the death penalty information tracks exonerations. Neither group's database is complete. No single resource amasses all the known exoneration cases. Now, on May 21st, the University of Michigan Law School, in conjunction with the Center of Wrongful Convictions at Northwestern University School of Law, released the first ever national registry of exonerations. The searchable online database, the most credible and comprehensive resource on wrongful convictions in the United States. Peter Neufeld, the co-founder and co-director of the Innocence Project, has called it the Wikipedia of Innocence. The registry, which can be viewed, you can view it at exonerationregistry.org. Currently 891 cases since 1989, the year of the first exoneration achieved using DNA. Boy, DNA saved somebody, but that year.
Yeah, but look up. But before then, but how many people actually had to go without having that system in place? That actually were put to death, for a crime they didn't commit. There's a lot of people that actually lost their lives because someone had falsely accused them. Someone said, "Oh, yeah, I think that was the person," but they didn't actually see the person. They're saying, "Oh, well, he resembles someone that fit the description," or someone is bribing them. "Hey, I want you to, if you go and say this in court, I'll give you this, or you can have that." But no matter how much people get, it cannot take back the person's life. It can't take back the years that they've spent behind these bars.
Right. You can't roll time back, and it's hard for a person to readjust. In the case that Tina was just talking about, this kid had a conversation with somebody, and they were saying, "Well, you're going to get this amount of money. You're going to get this. You're going to get this amount of money." And he was like, "You don't understand what I've endured. The beatings, the assaults, and it's mind-boggling that he ended up taking his own life."
Right, and it was
knowing he had a payday coming.
He was at home, and his mom said, "You have a lot of people in your corner," but he says it's not the same. Don't know what I actually had to go through. On a Saturday afternoon, about 12:15, he went into another bedroom, pulled out the air conditioning and pushed it on himself out through the hole in the wall, feet first, with the cord wrapped around his neck. His mother was the only other person at home at the time, and she heard a loud thumping noise, and she ran upstairs to investigate the noise. Come to find out it was her baby. Her baby committed suicide. I know that had to be hard for her as a mother to walk in and see your child hanging. It's hard as a mother to even have to see your child go through certain things in life that you can't protect them from. As a parent, you want to protect your child from everything, but sometimes you can't. And it makes you feel that you're not a parent because you feel you're not able to protect your child.
It makes us feel like we failed in a sense that, when we can't protect our own children. Me being a police officer, and we're not, me being an ex-police officer, we're not exonerated from this. I've had, my daughter, my oldest child, was just released from Nevada State Prison. Mm-hmm. So we're not exonerated from it. And then I felt like that I let her down because I couldn't protect her from the justice system. But that's a choice that she chose. That those are choices that she made to go down the road that she went down. I gave her the best that I could give her as far as a home life and everything that she wanted as a child. But as an adult, she made the decisions to do the things that she did that landed her in prison. So
Right. But then there are some times that we don't do something or don't do things and we are falsely accused. How many times have you heard the fact that people are have been where officers actually planted things in someone's vehicle, or just to say something, like you saying how sometimes your lieutenant or something will give you an incentive for your shift. Do this, do that, come back, you can go home go home early.
Right.
Okay, so you do, not to say every officer is bad. No, that every officer isn't bad. You have good officers, you have bad officers, you have good and bad in every profession. But my point that I'm trying to make today is the fact that we have people that walk around not doing anything, mind their own business, and are actually target. Why? Because in their areas that they live in, maybe they can't afford to be up in a nice area, Summerland or what have you, but because they are in a certain area, they're targeted because that's an area known for certain situations. So you can have young men walking down and they're being accused of something because they said, "Oh, mistaken identity," because we got to report that there's somebody that fits your description, but that person is not the one that did it, but they're falsely accused.
Right, but that's due diligence. You do your homework on that. You do your investigative skills, everything that you've learned in the police academy. I mean, say for instance, you're on Donna Street, and you get a description of somebody, a black male wearing a hoodie with a blue rag hanging out of his pocket. That's going to be just about every black male you run across.
True, but that's you. But you say that, but not every officer think that way. Not every officer had that mindset. Because what I'm trying to get at is the fact that I was an officer, worked for the state of Nevada. I was on my way to work in uniform. I was actually pulled over for speeding. Now, yeah, I do have a lead foot. But how I was treated as a criminal, from another entity. When I think that we're all on the same side, we should be all brothers and sisters. We're doing the same thing. But I was put into a situation where I was falsely accused because of how I was treated. Okay, I had my credentials out before he even approached my vehicle. There was things that he actually done to me that wasn't even on tape. And when I brought it to people's attention that, hey, this is what happened to me, and said, oh, well, this is not what the tape said. But I was actually there. It actually happened to me. Every day I have to, face the fact that, even when it gets cold, my wrist hurts, my wrist aches. Why? Because this man put me in restraints and I didn't even do anything wrong but speed. So I had a fractured wrist from this incident. And I was going to attorneys, and attorneys was telling me, oh, I I'm not going to touch that. I even had one attorney tell me, just leave it alone, just let it go. So you're telling me to be quiet for something that I know that I didn't do anything wrong but speed.
A lot of attorneys in this town, and I'm a native of Nevada, native of Las Vegas. A lot of attorneys in this town are really afraid to go against the state because the state is what governs them. The state is what gives them their license. They're afraid to fight the state. So if you have to get an attorney, you might want to seek an attorney outside of Nevada that doesn't primarily work in Nevada, California. Maybe he has a small office here in Las Vegas or something. But, and then that way, he won't be so afraid to go against the state, because, right. I mean, if they pull his license here, okay, he still practices in California.
Right. True. But then you have people that don't have the funds to do that. So then it puts them in a situation where, okay, now my right is violated for one. And so my life does not matter because I don't have money to actually to obtain an attorney to fight my right for my rights, that my rights have been violated from an officer that's supposed to be upholding the law. When we was growing up, our parents were telling us the police officer is your friend.
Supposedly, anyway.
Right. But nowadays, it's the opposite. Now the kids are afraid to approach police officers. And I'm not bashing police officers. But I'm just saying it's wrong how we, as a community, where some of the individuals are being falsely accused or falsely imprisonated for something that they had no control over. They had nothing to do with it, and they didn't have money to to get a regular attorney. So now they're falling prey because they didn't have the money to get a regular attorney.
And don't get me wrong, these public defenders, as they're called, the title, they actually are attorneys, but I call them attorney on a buffet, because it's about the number of cases that they can clear,
and they're overwhelmed.
And instead of actually getting their client exonerated, they're willing to go in and make a deal instead of going to trial and facing this high-priced attorney or the prosecutor. Now the prosecutor here is top notch, so there a lot of them guys are just intimidated by him, and he's known to have a no nonsense. He takes nothing. He does his homework. He was like that when he was a defense attorney, right. But now that he's a prosecutor, he's the district attorney. Mm-hmm. His whole office is like that now. I mean, they took on his persona. So now these public defenders are afraid to approach that because they know if they make one mistake, that person is going to prison for the full extent of the law. So now they don't even go in trying to fight this district attorney. They're going in trying to make deals right off the top. If your family member is innocent or not, they're going in trying to make deals.
Yeah, and that's not right, because now you're selling my soul. That's my life. You're selling my life. Well, I'm not going for the highest bidder because that attorney is well known and very powerful, but yet you took on a job. This is your job to make sure if I'm innocent to get me off. Not because, okay, regardless if they win or lose, they still get the paycheck at the end of the day. But still, how do you eat? How do you sleep at night knowing that this person could have been innocent, but now they serving 15, 20, 30 years in prison for something they didn't even commit?
I've been on the side of where there have been evidence withheld.
Yeah.
And then when it surfaces 6 months down the road,
they try to put it under the rug.
Like, why didn't this come out then? Well, the prosecution had this. Why didn't they had it? We gave it to them because you have to. Anything you have to share. They have to share their evidence from both sides. Right. And so the defense will give them everything that they have, but the prosecution will, put that in the back of the file or something, right, and say, we're not going to mention that unless they bring it up. But then these, like you say, these public defenders are so overwhelmed that they don't bring it up. And this person goes to prison because all they had to do is say, hey, well, we have a video showing that this wasn't him, or DNA. Right. We have DNA showing that this wasn't him, but that's not brought up. And these guys end up going to prison. And then, it's just like this Innocence Project get a hold of it. And they run the DNA and they do the investigation and they find out and go, hold, time out, wait a minute.
Right. Well, how come this evidence wasn't?
How come this wasn't? Right. How come this wasn't shown? And now it's 15 years later, and this guy has survived in prison for 15 years, and now he gets out and he doesn't know how to deal with society.
He has to learn.
He's been through 3 or 4 presidents, and it's crazy. Now he really don't trust.
I wouldn't trust anybody either.
He don't trust the law now, because first off, it was a police officer that put him in custody and took him to jail. Okay, but that police officer might have, not saying it, he might have had it right, thought he had it right, but it goes into the hands of detectives and the prosecutors. The burden's on them to prove that he's guilty.
Right, but just well as I know, we was in there. We was supposed to protect our brothers. So sometimes it happens where you know that your brother or your sister done something wrong. How often you know that someone is gonna squeal on you? Nobody's gonna squeal because that means your job. And that means your safety. You being out there on the streets knowing your brother that you didn't rat on is supposed to protect you. And if you call and say, hey, I need help, I need backup, how fast do you actually think they're gonna respond to you?
Right. I mean, and that's a question on most oral boards when you're going on the police department. Will you, what happens if you go to a call and you go to a robbery call and you see your partner stick a Snickers bar in his pocket, and how would you answer that? And my answer to the oral board was, I'm going to tell him, look, I didn't go through 6 months of hell in a police academy to let you ruin my career. Either you're going to tell the sergeant that you took the Snickers bar. I'm going to give you that opportunity to tell the sergeant so you look good in front of him.
Right.
But if you don't tell him, I'm going to tell him because we're in this together. We're on this scene together. And I physically saw you take this Snickers bar.
That's you. Everybody don't think like that. I know everybody's seen that movie Training Day. Now, Denzel, that's my boy. I love Denzel. And things that were actually brought out in that movie, things like that actually do happen. So when you're faced with that,
unit, yeah.
Right. So when you're faced with this situation, you have no money. And who do you think they're going to listen to? They're going to listen to a puny on me, or they're going to listen to an officer? Whose word do you honestly think that they're going to take, or they're going to listen to? They're not going to listen to just ordinary citizen on the street versus somebody that's actually took an oath.
Right. And it's happened both ways where, I've had people say that, we've planted stuff on them. Like, I didn't plan anything on you. I mean, I'm here on a legal call.
Right.
And because I stop you and frisk you, pat you down, find this gun and find these narcotics, I planted this on you. So I got out of my squad car, put some dope in my pocket and a gun to put this on you.
Yeah, but not, like I said before, not everybody thinks like you.
But it happens.
But it happens.
It happens.
And,
I know it happens.
And it's sad to say that people are losing their life because we have so many corrupted individuals from the top all the way down. I'm not just saying all about the police department, but we have corruption in our school systems. We have corruption in government office. We have corrupted attorneys, taking bribes from people, that they know that it's wrong, that they're not doing right, but still they gonna have them on they bankroll. So, so there goes, it says to the little man. Now, someone that doesn't have money, to actually get a real attorney to protect them and their rights, they actually end up with public defenders and they end up behind bars for something they didn't commit. Now, how many on your stats, how many actually was sent to prison, innocent people that were sent to prison, and then how many people that actually were on death row that actually was executed?
Well, it says here in from 1973 to 2004, 7,400 people were sentenced to death. Among them, 117 were exonerated. So, but like we discussed on the way here, 95% of the people in prison are innocent. So they claim.
Yeah, that's they claim. But
So
then but on the other hand, you do actually have innocent people that are in there that didn't have money to get a real attorney to fight for their rights and dig up, do some real investigation to protect them.
But you gotta, I understand that. But the way the attorney looks at it is, I get paid so many hundreds of dollars an hour, and how can this person that's incarcerated already, how is he going to pay me?
Well, some family members have money, and that's how a lot of stuff. Is taken care of. Just because you're incarcerated doesn't mean you still don't have access to the outside world, where you can have your family members or friends or whoever to go to the meetings on the outside for you, to go meet with the attorneys, go take money to the attorneys, to go take evidence that they know to the attorneys, so that way they can look further into the situation. And my point that I'm just trying to get across is, if we have so many youth that's actually being accused for something that they didn't commit, like the young man here, he was 16. He got out when he was 22. And then after he got out, because everything that he endured behind these walls, he couldn't take it anymore, and he kills himself.
Psychologically, they murdered him.
Right. Emotionally, he is dead.
Yeah, he's
walking, but and he's breathing, but he's actually dead inside.
They beat his psyche to death. I mean, a 16-year-old going into Rikers. I'm 46, and I would be terrified to go into Rikers Island. You know, that is probably one of the most notorious detention centers in the country. So can you imagine a baby going in there? If he doesn't have that killer reputation already, that's gonna shield him from most of the onslaught that he's gonna face. I mean, he goes in there behind a backpack.
Right. Something someone new.
That is the most expensive ass backpack.
Well, it had to be. Yeah,
$10,000.
Because his life is gone now.
His bail was $10,000 for a backpack.
Right.
That is crazy. And now he's not here because they psychologically killed him.
Right. And this goes on, and it goes on, and it's been going on, but nobody's bringing it about. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody's pushing under the rug. Yes, I can understand people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to lose their job, but I'm not there in the department anymore. So they can't threaten me with my job anymore. So, but things that happened, yes, there was a lot of things that happened that was wrong. You had a lot of lieutenants and sergeants and stuff that knew things that was going on, but brushed under the rug. How many people, the officers for that matter, that actually didn't do certain things, but still yet, because they had people in place that should not have been in a supervisory position to make these decisions.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right. But we are the ones who get the backlash, not the sergeants and lieutenants. We're the ones who's getting the backlash as officers. With the shortage on the yard. How can we keep ourselves safe when it's one officer to 200 some inmates? How can we as an officer keep all them 250 inmates safe when it's only us, only that one? That's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, because as an officer and an officer safety, you watch your subjects' hands.
Right, but and you have so many of them to watch.
You watch their hands and their body language. But if you have 250 people to watch, how much attention to detail can you spend?
Very little. But then yet, like I said, we are the one who gets the backlash as an officer when we're trying to make sure that not only are the inmates safe, but to make sure that we go home at the end of the day. They don't realize that, hey, we have a lot that's on the plate. It's a political position. The police department, everything is political. So you got to play by the political ball. But you know what? But it's people's lives that we're playing with. And me personally, my life is nothing to play with. And I'm pretty sure everyone else feels the same way about their life. Just because I don't have the money, the funds to get that high power attorney, does that mean that I still have to suffer because I don't have that money? His mother didn't have that $10,000.
Theoretically, no. But realistically, yeah, that's the way it happens. I mean, it's not supposed to be like that, but that's the way that it is. If you can't afford, that Johnny Cochran type, then you're pretty much sailing down the river with no paddles.
Pretty much.
So wherever you land is where you're going to land. Just like the case with Mr. Simpson, he had a dream team. You know, I mean, they had evidence stacked to the roof on him. But you had this corrupt officer and a corrupt DA that was, I've never seen a district attorney on the crime scene as it happens. Never. You know, even if he was guilty, even if he did say he did it, there was enough, they made enough mistakes in that trial in you know, preserving that evidence in California and preserving that evidence,
right,
to where his dream team, they walked in looking like clowns. They had big smiles on their faces because they could poke holes in everything, especially the blood on the sock thing, you know, the N-word being thrown around, you know. Now they're poking holes in the prosecution's whole case. So now the prosecution look like a bunch of kindergartners up there with Johnny Cochran and his dream team. I mean, he's got $1 million worth of lawyers.
Yeah,
you know,
but I mean, it just goes to show you how money does talk. You know, and it just goes to show you that you can buy money pretty much with anything. You can buy anything with money, as long as you have money. You flash the money. Hey, here's that person's life over there. Here's $1 million. Take that. You know, it's sad that we're having a lot of young people and elderly that are actually being falsely accused. There was another man that was in prison that was back south. He was in prison since he was 16. Didn't get out until he was 65.
16 to 65?
And he did, and they finally, with the new system that they have.
That's 49 years.
Right. He lost 49 years. So you tell me, how can someone get their 49 years back? They can't. And I don't care how much money the government or the state gives me, it's not going to give me back my 49 years that I lost. I lost, like he said, I wasn't able to have kids. Wasn't able to get married. He said other things that he wasn't able to do. I couldn't go to college because someone falsely accused him.
But you know, you can, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you really got to be careful about the things that you do in certain states in the South.
Yeah, even here too.
Yeah, you know, but
here too. We're not even in the South.
You know, I mean, we were talking about this on the way here. How many juries in a case where a black male has committed a crime and you have an all-white jury? You see that quite frequently.
But you're not going to see that.
You see that quite frequently. But now, as far as a white male committing a crime against a black person, have you ever heard
that? No.
Of an all-black jury?
No, it's not going to happen.
That is ludicrous. That won't happen. You know, because and honestly, I'm glad it won't happen, because even if that guy was innocent, that jury's going to convict him only because of the color of his skin, not because of the crime that he's committed.
Now they see how we feel when we are under that same scrutiny.
But that doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't. But it happens.
I can't disagree with that. I cannot disagree with that. It happens, you know, and that's why now attorneys, both the sides of these attorneys on these cases, the prosecution and defense, are, when they do that jury pool thing, that's why both of them are there. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen people go in and say, I hate rapists, or I hate black people, to get kicked off a jury. You know, but it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, I wish that, you know, that we could just be Americans. You know, I really do.
But I wish when we get back, or we will get to the point where it's not about the skin color anymore, and it's not about, you know, the dark skin or the whites or the Hispanics or the Asians. It shouldn't be that. It should be we're all humans. We all bleed the same color blood. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. So why can't
I jump off the bed?
It's never gonna happen.
Right, exactly. It's not gonna happen. It's not. I mean, we had so many people that fought for our rights Martin Luther King, we had Rosa Parks, we had Harriet Tubman that did a lot of stuff. But yet we're still suffering. We're still suffering as a black community. We're still suffering. And we can't only blame it on the white man, but we're doing it to ourselves too.
Absolutely.
We are putting each other down. Absolutely. We don't want to help one another. Then we have our young people killing each other over colors and why you look at my girl or why you text my girl this or what have you. But they're not the only one that's hurting ourselves. We're hurting ourselves because if we would get together as a community, help one another when we see one of our brothers or sisters down, grab their hand and lift them up. If we would do that as a community, do you really know how powerful we can be? Do you know what we can do as a community if we will all stand together and walk this walk and fight this fight together? Do you honestly know what we can accomplish? But because we don't recognize it as a community and other people, other ethnic groups recognizes this, that's why they do what they try to do. They conquer. If they divide, they conquer. But if we don't let them to come in and try to divide us as a whole, we can be powerful. And we have so many educated black people walking around here in Las Vegas. We have so many. And that's one thing no one can ever take away from you is your education. As long as you have education, if you learn your laws in Nevada, can't nobody do anything to you. Know your laws, know your rights as a person, get to know your amendments, your First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech. Get to know all that, because once you have that knowledge, can't nobody take that away from you. They can try to say something to you about this and say that, but then when you stand up and say, no, I know that's wrong. That wasn't right. That's not what that First Amendment is. Let me do this. I know I have the right to speak. But until we know that as a community, we're not going to go anywhere.
And a lot of people don't realize that police have to have reasonable suspicion to stop you. They can't just walk up on you and start asking you questions.
But they do.
And laws that's against the law. They have to have reasonable suspicion. And they have to reasonable suspicion or probable cause.
Right. And you and I know this. But for some ordinary person that has not been on the law side or doesn't have that access to get to know, to learn, how are they going to know? They're not going to know unless someone takes the time to educate them, or they take the time out to educate themselves by going to the library, reading and stuff. They're not going to know that because it happens. Things that we know that should not be happening, it happens.
That's that I can't argue with. I mean, I drive down the street and I see police officers stopping people, and the people sit there and engage in it. My question would be to them is, am I under arrest?
Right.
And if the police officer says no, turn around and walk away. Because you don't have to engage in that conversation, because right now they're on a fishing expedition.
But okay,
they're looking for something to.
Right. But when you said that, right? Okay, now say, for instance, that person walks away. Now, do you honestly think that officer is going to stop right there? He's not going to stop. He's going to go further. Just like we was watching the video this morning. Okay, this man was being harassed by an officer, took the man's identification card, refused to give this man back his identification card. This officer, who's been taught, goes to start throwing blows at this man, starting fighting this man. And then when the man started to try to protect himself, then what happened? All the other officers come in and jump on him.
Yeah, and what the officer didn't know. Well, first off, to put it in perspective, the officer that made the stop was in plain clothes.
Right.
I'm not talking to you. I don't know who you are. You haven't showed me any credentials. Anybody can say they're a police officer. So now it comes to fisticuffs. This guy, this officer punches this guy square in the mouth.
Right.
So as a man, I'm going to defend myself. At no point did he identify himself as a police officer. And this is on video. The only time that it came out that he was a police officer was he had a female partner with him, that said, we're police officers. Well, you probably should have made that known when you made the stop. When you stopped it.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, I should have identified yourself. You should have had your badge showing, or hey, my name is Officer such and such from whatever police department. I need to talk to you for whatever reason. But this didn't happen. It didn't happen, and it got absolutely ugly. There was a fight. Luckily, his friend that he was walking with videotaped everything. So there's no way that this department can cover this up. I mean, they're going to probably charge this guy with something. I mean, I think when I read into it a little more, I think that it was over a pocket knife. You punch me in my mouth over a legal pocket knife. No, I got an issue with that. But it's
sad, but it happens. It happens.
Sad.
We need to bring awareness to it, and it's starting to come more forefront because we're watching it on the news all the time.
But the thing that I've noticed a lot with police officers making stops, and it's the, I don't want to call them the subject, but it's the, okay, I'll call them the subject. They determine our demeanor. They get an attitude. So if they get an attitude, quite naturally, the officer's going to get an attitude.
But hold that thought. And just like I was told when that other entity did what he did to me, I was told that you take control of what you take control of in the prison, and we take control of what's on the yard. And then they also said that as an officer, you should know how to control the situation. So just because somebody getting irate, does that mean you have to get irate too?
Not necessarily, but when you don't feel like you're being watched or videotaped, of course you're gonna buck your chest back. But 9 times out of 10, I stop a guy, he gives me attitude. I say, for instance, I stop him for something as little as his license plate light being not working.
Right.
Okay, I walk up to him and before I can even tell him what I'm stopping him for, he starts dropping F-bombs and why that so right now I shouldn't, but I'm gonna go right back at him, and him not knowing that little light on the back of his license plate, I can take him to jail for that.
But my point is that, okay, yes, he was throwing the F-bombs, but we were taught to be professional. We were supposed to be professional individuals when we interact with.
You're saying the right word, supposed to be.
Right. I'm saying that, but I'm just saying, but this is what happens. You have officers that take these oaths to serve and protect, but yet are they really protecting? Maybe protecting them in their butt. Yeah, and certain things that happen, cover it up, creative writing. But when they're out doing these things to these people, who is going to stand up for them? You have a whole department behind you protecting you. So if you do something wrong, what you going to do? Get a slap on the wrist? Like the officer that did what he did to me. What is he doing? He's still sitting in the office. He's pushing papers. But I was told by another officer, an investigator that was working for our department, that he used to work with him on the streets. So this man has done this many times to several different people, but no one's ever got injured but me. But they didn't try to help me. And I'm an officer. So if I'm an officer, they do this to their own brothers. What make you think they're going to do that to a civilian?
I understand what you're saying. And I know it's a sticky situation. It's an emotional situation with you. But there are guys out there on every department that have, well, how do I want to put it? They have issues with going over the top.
Yeah, they do. A lot of them been bullied when they were younger, and now they have a badge.
Yeah, this is the way to give back.
Right.
This is the way they give back. But the department is supposed to do a psychological profile. I mean, each department is down.
Yeah, they're supposed to.
Each department is down, so people are slipping through the cracks. you know, and you got officers that have done drive-by shootings.
But nothing's gonna happen to them.
Oh, he went to prison.
Oh, whoa! We mean somebody did?
I'm sorry, he didn't do it. Chris Brady did it.
Right.
Ron Martinson didn't do it.
Well, Brady went to jail.
No, Brady didn't go to jail.
Yeah,
Ron Martinson is doing life in prison without the possibility of parole. I've been following that case for 17 years. I'm sorry I got into it.
It's okay.
They were Brady's father is the one that covered up everything. And the only thing he did, it was a few months in the federal penitentiary for human rights violation. That's it. He went to Costa Rica and he lived in Costa Rica like a king, while the other one is
in prison.
And they make
but you know what?
I
say that that is on that other officer, Mortensen, simply because if you're gonna throw the towel at me, I'm gonna let you know the truth. That's where that code of silence come in. Yeah. And now he's doing life in prison
because that's what she said.
For a code of silence.
That's what she said. He will open his mouth. All the police department.
Right
now, he is an idol. He's a victim because everybody knows that the other person did it and he's paying the price.
He did. Right. Yeah, that's what, he's probably in prison right now, living like a fat king. He don't have to worry about anything because those CEOs are going to protect him because he stood by that code of silence, that blue line.
There's too many powerful people behind that case, and they make his life miserable in there. He's there with OJ. I talk to them all the time. So,
but it goes to say, this just goes to show that there's a lot of corruption, and a lot of stuff is being pushed under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about it because either somebody that has big money or has power, they're not going to touch it. They're going to keep quiet. And then if you do talk about it, then you're going to start receiving
death threats.
Right. So, I mean, it's sad that we have so many people that is in prison and because they are falsely accused or better yet, lost their lives. How can we get their lives back? We can't. How can they get the time that they spend in prison back? They can't. The mother that just lost her baby, her 22-year-old son. How can she get her son back? She can't. So you telling me my son is worth $10,000 for something he didn't do for a backpack?
That's what I'm saying. That is the most expensive backpack. That is ridiculous. A misdemeanor, $10,000. That is that's ridiculous.
That's like bail for possession of drugs.
Something, a felony anyway. But just like last week's guest, Michael said, he spent 390 days in jail fighting a murder case that he had nothing to do with, but because he was on the street and doing the things that he was doing at the time, it fit him, that crime fit him. So they went and arrested him and seriously tried to prosecute him.
A mistaken identity, and it happens a lot.
I don't know if it was mistaken identity. I think they just wanted him off the street because he was one of the most vocal on the scene. And
that's what happens. If you do know your rights and you speak up for your rights, yeah, you're gonna have people try to shut you up. You're gonna have a lot of people try to shut you up and try to get rid of you.
It took him a little over a year fighting the case, and then finally came out that he had absolutely nothing to do with it. And the evidence showed that he wasn't even on the scene. He came up on the scene afterwards because he got a phone call. So, but being that who he was and what he represented, they felt that they could take him out and the crime will go away, but not so much.
Go away. It's the person that is happening to. They'll never be able to get rid of that. Without proper and effective intervention or therapy, they're always gonna have something that's always gonna be remind them of what they had to endure. Unfortunately, this young man who lost his life, who took his life, he didn't have that strength or anyone else around to help him get through this. So he took the easy way out. He thought it was easy for himself.
Right. So now, who's the real victim in that?
He is.
I would say his mom is.
Well, they both are.
Because she had to endure 6 years of him being incarcerated.
3.
Or from 16 to 22.
Right. Well, he was in, but they released him in 2013.
Okay. So even that's a long time. 3 years that knowing your 16-year-old now as a man when he comes out that's been psychologically murdered.
Right.
And then he's not strong enough and he can't get the help that he needs to survive and he commits suicide. Yeah. So I say the mom is the victim.
They both are, because there's a lot of things that happen on the inside of prison. And everything that happens out here happens inside there, rape and everything else. He was sent to a big yard. He's, to me, a little fish in a shark tank.
A minnow in a shark tank.
Yeah. And,
wow.
And the convicts, they try to control the young ones that come in there. I had a story with a young man, he was 21, same age as one of my boys. And he was actually raped inside there. And it gave me goosebumps. The guy that did it was a convict. He was serving life in there. He's not getting out.
He didn't give it in.
So he had his friends help him. They held him down while they did what he did, while he did what he did to the young man. So it has to be.
Was there any consequences to the
I don't know what else happened to. I know they were both taken away. The young man was in the infirmary. The other guy they took out to do some testing on him. But I don't know what happened to the end of the story. I haven't seen the young man since then. But I mean, a lot of things happen and they suffer a lot of stuff. And I believe young kids should not be put onto adult yard. They should be separate yards.
But if they're tried as an adult and they get convicted as an adult, then why, there
should be a separate unit, a separate place for them young men to go. Because they go in there, they learn more than what they went in knowing.
Right, but they've committed an adult crime.
Right, but I'm not saying they shouldn't pay for what they did. I'm just saying they need to separate them. Why would you put a baby with, even though they did their crime, why would you put a baby with grown men?
So at what point do you bring them to the second?
When they get old enough, when they're old enough, when they pass.
What's old enough? 18, you're an adult.
22. Then they can go into the men's yard because they're going to take advantage of them.
I don't know. I think that, if you commit that type of crime, you should be able to deal with the consequences. So
thank you for tuning in to No More. You guys have a happy 4th of July. Be safe out there. And we'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye.
Before we go away, my name is Rolando Larraz. I am the engineer in Radio Tribune, and I want to apologize to Tina and Alan Burse for jumping into their show, but
okay.
I know the case that you were talking about from day one.
It's okay.
And I know how much that guy has suffered. He lost his wife, his daughter. He lost everything he got in life, and they don't even allow him to ask for to file appeals or anything like that. What they doing to him, it is criminal. And my apology to both of you for doing that.
It's good. It's good input.
This is No More, and thank you very much for listening.